Let's bring in Robert Murray right now joining us, and we appreciate him hanging around for a sec while Whit gave us all of the insight there. You can follow Robert at by Robert Murray, writes for Fansided, MLB Insider. Excited to have you on here for the first time, Robert. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. How are you? Good to be here
Good,
finally.
good. You got to hear some of Whit Merrifield's insight on what goes down in those rule committee conversations. What have you heard, if you've spoken to people in the past, players, team people, league people, about that process and anything that you're looking forward to in 2024 and beyond? Because there were a few things there, Robert, that I learned that were new to me, including, yeah, sure, we know generally, for example, the umpires probably don't want robo-umps, but you're actually getting those conversations going down there where they're actually fighting against it, you know?
No, for sure. And it's something that I've heard consistently from players and even agents as well, is that they just hope Major League Baseball prioritizes their long-term health in this process and doesn't just try to close games and get them to about the 2 hour and 30-minute mark. Is they want to find different ways to shorten the games. And I think what Witt said in terms of the challenge system, where managers are holding up their arms 6-7 times a game waiting or delaying the game to see if they should challenge. And I think that's one of the ways it can do that, get 3 minutes out there or get 3 minutes out of the game, at least per game. They can do a lot of different things, but I think the consistent thing from players is they just want to make sure that they're being put in positions where they can be healthy for a 162 game baseball season. And I think this process is really, it should take time. It should not be rushed. And I think Major League Baseball really needs to listen to its players and listen to them seriously, because they're, as Witt said, they're ultimately the ones who are responsible for putting money in the owners' pockets. And this is a big issue and something that should be taken very seriously.
Okay, so Robert, let's move to the freshest news right now. We got a little trade action in the last 20 minutes or so. So Eugenio Suarez is the main piece of this, moving over to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who had Longoria on a 1-year contract, and they're going to fill their third base position with another veteran who can bring some serious pop. Yeah, there's some swing and miss in that bat, and I'm seeing this as we're talking to Witt earlier, but I mean, early reaction from me is, here's a team that desperately needs more power. They talk about it all the time and all year. I think they had more pop than we expected in the playoffs, but still, you're getting a guy who can hit 40 for you. You'll take some swing and miss because so much of the rest of that lineup plays the game differently. Do you like the trade early on here for Arizona? I don't have enough yet on the other side to see where Seattle's going with this, but Seattle needs offense. I know they want more contact, but at the same time, I've not been a huge fan of the way that they've been trying to construct their roster over the past year or so, aside from the fact that they have incredible young pitching that's been coming up. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. So I live out here in Arizona. I live about 20 minutes from the ballpark. So I go to plenty of different Diamondbacks games. And as soon as their season ended, I was talking to some people in that front office, and they immediately said that third base was going to be their biggest priority this offseason. And I thought, and I heard immediately as soon as this offseason started, that Matt Chapman was going to be a name of interest for them. And he was going to be one of the many options that they explore. But if you look at Suarez, yeah, his salary is a bit inflated, but what he provides is power. He's durable. He's played 162 games this season. He's been pretty healthy for the majority of his career, and you're getting somebody that you can depend on. And he's also, that's a really young clubhouse in Arizona, and something that you could hear from different players after the trade deadline was the impact that guys like Tommy Pham or even Evan Longoria, who they signed in the offseason last year, it really provided a good sounding board for these young players. And I think that's something that the organization heard pretty consistently from their players. And I think that's what Suarez provides. I think it's a really good move for Arizona because they didn't give up much at all. They gave up a live bullpen arm, and then they also gave up a backup catcher. And if that's the cost of doing business, I think that's a really smart move for Arizona. Kind of seemed like a salary dump for Seattle, and they seem like they're primed, at least right now, to move forward at third base with Luis Urias. So in the process, they cleared payroll room. The Diamondbacks ended up getting their third baseman that they wanted. So on the surface here, it seems like a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, Robert, you mentioned a great point about bringing in a veteran guy like that. I don't think there's anybody nicer in the game than Eugenio Suarez. I don't know if you've had many dealings with him.
Never.
Can you talk a little bit more about the impact, though, that a veteran guy that can produce? Evan Longoria was great, I thought, but you're going to get more offense, obviously, out of Suarez being there now.
No, for sure. And like on the field, like the impact that he can bring is, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's got like legit power. He can hit at least 20 home runs, if not 30 plus. And that's a really important thing. And if you look at like that roster in Arizona too, like the clubhouse presence, I remember talking to Alec Thomas. He was a guy that had a pretty up and down season, got sent down during the season with Brandon Pfaadt, and both those guys ended up being postseason heroes for the Diamondbacks. But he talked about the importance of like relying on those veterans and just getting a different opinions and getting and like leaning on them to get through those tough times. Because as these players said, it's a roller coaster of a season. Like things happen and you got to overcome them. And I think Suarez is going to be huge for that. He's going to be really good for that young locker room, but he's also going to be an upgrade at third base. And a Diamondbacks team that's coming off of a World Series appearance like that, that's a really good start to the offseason. They're not done by any means. They still got to figure out the outfield spot. They also got to figure out they're going to add another starting pitcher. But this is a really good start. And for the cost, you can't really go wrong with that at all.
Robert, on the other side here, I know I started to mention it. I'd be pretty pissed if I'm a Seattle fan. They tanked for a while. They built back up. What I previously mentioned was maybe the best core of young starting pitching in this sport. And a lot of it's up in the big leagues now, and they're going to be under team control for a while. And I don't necessarily look at that and go, oh, let's trade our pitching for some young position players. They have money. The Mariners are rich. They're fine. They opened up their payroll this past season at about, I think it was 137 mil. I talked to Ken Rosenthal earlier about. That was in the back half of the league, 18th. That place fills up. They're doing great. Okay, they'd say if they weren't. They're making a ton of money. Their payroll is down pretty significantly from what it used to be. It already seems like they leaked that they're not going to be in on Ohtani. What should fans be thinking aside from, the famous 54% number that was thrown out there by Jerry DiPoto? I think they have a ton of heat on them if they think like they're just going to be playing the long game and trying to be good. Like you're in a tough division too, in my mind, right? Like Texas is not going anywhere. Houston's been a powerhouse for a while. What the hell is the plan here? Because they need more offense. There's no doubt about that. Not hard to find. I mean, not easy to find this coming off season. Maybe they get involved for someone like Juan Soto, but if not Ohtani, they're not paying for Cody Bellinger. What's the plan for the Mariners to be a juggernaut on offense and to show their fans they actually give a shit about being, a 60% winning percentage team?
That's a heck of a question. And that's like the 54% number was going to be the first thing that I brought up. And if I was a Mariners fan, I'd be really frustrated with that. It's you hear those comments from Jerry DiPoto, and they seem like a team that while they've always had talent, they've always seemed like they're constantly rebuilding as they acquire that talent and then they trade it away, get prospects, and then they get to the major leagues and you end up it's constantly being in a rebuilding state. And it would get really old to me. And it should put pressure on that front office to finally establish a winner, because the Mariners have gotten the taste of like what winning has looked like the last couple of years. And they never seem like they can get over the hump. And this trade to me would be rather disheartening. And for Mariners fans, if you look at the Twitter reaction after this trade, there's a lot of people who are really upset, and rightfully so. Like Suarez is one of the more popular players in Seattle. And if you're the Mariners in that front office and you want to put a winner on the field, and that being said, like automatically, like at least they didn't say it on the record, but they at least said it, like there was reports from, I think it was MLB.com that said they're not going to pursue Shohei Ohtani. And I don't understand why any team at this point would rule out like being in the bidding for Shohei Ohtani. Like he's a generational talent. The amount of money that he can bring that organization or any organization that he signs with marketing stuff, with basically everything that he provides, it could end up fueling that franchise, whoever signed him, for the next 10 years and make him extremely profitable. And so I think it's a huge mistake not being in the Ohtani sweepstakes. maybe they, as you said, maybe they get creative and go after a Juan Soto type who could be on the trade market. Maybe they go after somebody else because Jerry Dipoto is always creative. But for me, if I was a Mariners fan, patience would be wearing thin. And I think he's got to get that team on a deep postseason run because I don't know how many more shots at this he can have without actually delivering results.
Yeah, Dipoto is very creative, but yeah, why would you tell your fans you're not even interested in Ohtani? That doesn't make any sense. But going back to losing Suarez, so as of right now, Ken Rosenthal just tweeted out that they're likely to play newly acquired Luis Urias. Is he really the answer at third base? If I'm a Mariners fan, I'm pissed too, right? That doesn't make any sense.
No, and I mean, Urias, he was a top prospect with the Padres, and he was super highly thought of and someone who was supposed to be like a long-term piece in that infield. And then he got traded to the Brewers in the Trent Grisham, Zach Davies trade a few years ago. And he was supposed to be one of the answers for the Brewers, but he never lived up to that potential. He showed flashes for sure, especially once he was moved to third base after the Brewers got Willy Adames. He seemed like he was more comfortable at third base than he was at short. But that didn't last long. And then he got traded to Boston and basically an afterthought deal at this past trade deadline. And now he's in Seattle and appears to be their starting third baseman as of right now. I would not have much confidence in him at this point. He's got talent for sure, but he has not proven in his last 3 spots that he can end up being the guy. So it's a bit of a challenging situation there for the Mariners. And if I was them, I would look at third base upgrades. Like a guy like Heimer Candelario, I think would make a lot of sense there. And he would not break the bank at all. But Urias seems like the guy right now, but that would not give me much confidence. And that would just, if I was a Mariners fan, that would just give me every more reason to be upset with what's going on.
Hey, Robert, let me take you to a fan base that's much happier right now. That would be the St. Louis Cardinals fans.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Sarcasm. But sure, they added innings. They got Lynn. They picked up Kyle Gibson. They said they were going to get 3 and then tweaked it to 2.5 pitchers. So now people are wondering, okay, is Lynn or Kyle Gibson looked at as a half a pitcher? I don't think so. So maybe they're back to their goal of 3. Here we go. There are the 2 signings that we're looking at right now. Okay, they need to pick up innings. Cool, got it. So what do you think they're going to do to actually address, the top end of their rotation? And also, the biggest thing I'm having a problem with is they sound like they're stuck in the past sometimes. They're like, we're going to value swing and miss more from our pitchers. It's like, yeah, cool. Everyone's been doing that for a long time now. And then they do pick up one below average and one very below average swing and miss guy, right? For their rotation. So I'm just wondering what's next for them, like what they think they're going to accomplish that's going to get that guy. I do think they'll get someone, right? But the top of the market's only got a few big names there. And even if they do pick up that one big pitcher, like, do you think that's enough for them to be a division contender again?
I thought like the Cardinals, they made it abundantly clear entering this offseason that they were going to be prioritizing starting pitching upgrades. I just did not expect that at all to be them jumping the market for Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. And I thought it's just it was strange. And I think, as you said, they can be stuck in the past. And like they spent a combined like 32 million something or 23 million on guys who are 36 years old entering this season. And it doesn't seem like it moves the needle at all for them. And I expect them to continue to add to that rotation this winter. I think they have a shot to sign a guy like Sonny Gray. I think he would make a whole lot of sense there. I know the Twins have interest in re-signing him, and he really liked being in Minnesota. And there's going to be plenty of competition for his services, especially coming off of the year that he did. But as far as St. Louis and where they're at, it's really puzzling. And you could see the fans' frustration after John Mozeliak's press conference yesterday. And he kept reiterating that they're not done. They're not done at all. But to start the offseason with those 2 moves, I'll provide some more insight on this too, because after those deals were made, I thought they were a little bit on the overpaid side. I thought both were pretty rich, but I ended up talking to some different teams who said the valuation on both those players were exactly in line with what they had internally. And so the price for starting pitching is really, really high right now. And we're going to see some pretty big contracts later this offseason, and I would not be surprised if another one happens soon. Maybe we'll see. But as far as the Cardinals, they're not done. But this has been a pretty underwhelming start to their offseason for sure.
Yeah. So do you get the sense that if they, I mean, I don't know what the contracts are. I think it's total 20 million something between the two, right? So if they don't make these deals, doesn't that give them more money to go sign a Sonny Gray, as you mentioned? Because who wouldn't want Sonny Gray in the rotation?
No, exactly. I think you're spot on with that. And that to me, I think that would have been exactly how I would have went about this, is you want to have as many resources as you possibly can available in order to sign guys like that. And Sonny Gray would make a lot of sense. I think Eduardo Rodriguez would make a lot of sense too. Yamamoto is a player who is garnering just significant interest. And I mean, you look at all three of those guys and you can make the case that St. Louis should be in on all of them. They're not going to sign all of them, obviously, but signing at least one should have been their top priority this winter. And instead, they started with Lynn and they started with Gibson. I like Lynn. Like Gibson's coming off of a really good year, and Lynn is coming off of a pretty down year with the White Sox and the Dodgers. Both of them eat innings, so they got that insurance for sure. But they could have just gone for more high upside swings, especially with the money that they spent. But Mozeliak thought differently. I'm curious to see if it works, but considering their previous history in pitching, especially recently, I'm not overly optimistic it's going to work, but who knows? Maybe I could be proven wrong.
You know, the thing that confuses me, Robert, and yeah, sure, we'll wait until the offseason plays out for St. Louis and see what else they do, is that usually when you get these early signings, it's more like the Nola deal getting done and he wants to get there. You know, it was curious to me that they decided to allocate money this way because, like you mentioned, you're spending almost 25 million bucks on two pitchers here. You better not come to me later on and say you missed out on the big prize by a certain amount of money because you filled up your 2024 payroll too much with guys that are more in the back end of a rotation. It almost makes me think of like when they overpaid. I know this is going to be a sore spot for Cardinals fans, but for Brett Cecil back in the day on that contract, and you're looking and you're like, huh? And I'm not necessarily saying those two aren't going to pitch well for them, but just the order of operations seems pretty interesting to me. The one other part of this that I thought about was Reynaldo Lopez, if you think he's a starter, would have made more sense based off what they're talking about. They want strikeouts. They want to rely less on their defense, right? That was their big thing that they were pushing during this past season. And I get it for the development part of things and where you're looking for prospects, but I thought they meant the same thing on the free agent pitching part of the conversation. So that's where I'm curious, even if you do end up getting one guy, like let's say they do trade for a Tyler Glasnow or something like that. Great. Then you got a big swing and miss pitcher, but it's just one guy. I mean, when you ultimately look at the difference between this year and last year, like I think if they do land a Glasnow, I think that'll probably be it for them as far as what they do with starting pitching. And I'm going to look at their rotation and be like, great. So there's one dude who can strike out the world. And then the rest are all a similar type of pitcher with Michaelis added to the other guys. Fine to have maybe one of those guys at the back end of a rotation, but I don't know. I'm still feeling kind of lost and feeling like it's going to mostly be the same and relying on one pitcher that you freaking better pray does not get hurt.
No, exactly. And if that player ends up being Glasnow, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's obviously is extremely talented, but he's somebody that has been injured in the past, and like you got to be very mindful of not overdoing it with him for sure. And also, if you do acquire him, that's a $25 million salary, which is going to end up being just as much. Like it's going to be more than those two other pitchers combined. And it's a really odd way for that team to go about this offseason as far as the two pitchers that they did add, because like the messaging was one thing that they wanted to add more swing and miss. And then they did the exact opposite, and they kind of reverted to what they ended up doing in the past. And it's a really frustrating way of going about the offseason. And to answer the one of the first things that you guys asked is, I don't know. Obviously, this is really early on into the offseason. Like the offseason is just beginning. But I don't know how much more meaningfully better this rotation is going to be at this stage than it was last year. And it would not have me optimistic that they're going to be able to compete with teams like the Brewers or teams like the Chicago Cubs, who are going to be very aggressive this winter. And they just got Craig Counsell, who's regarded as one of the best managers in baseball, and he's obviously being compensated like it as well. Just really puzzling. I don't necessarily know if I understand the strategy. The mixed messaging would really bother me if I was part of that fan base. And boy, on a scale of 1 to 10 on the terms of the upset scale, it seems like both the Mariners and Cardinals fans are at a strong 9.5 to 10 right now. This is no bueno, no bueno.
Yeah, we're seeing it in the comments too. Like Jackson, who's one of the regulars in the comments with us, said Mozeliak was asked if he's going to pursue a 1 or a 2. He said on any given day, the guy on the mound is our number 1. Come on.
Oh, boy.
I mean,
Like what?
just say, yeah, we're going. How about even if you don't want to, if you want to play like the political game of not saying much, just be like, yo, we're going big still, so look out. Like, and if you didn't feel confident about that, then you don't say it. But I don't know. That's tough. Let's try and finish on some type of more positive note. Is there something that you're liking so far? Like, say maybe what Atlanta is starting to do, and it seems like they're lurking to make a big move for their starting rotation. Not a team that usually gives up massive contracts either, but them, or I'll just kind of give you the floor. If there's anything else you guys have been talking about on your show, which we'll plug in a sec, that's gotten a lot of buzz. Obviously, if you wanted to go down the Ohtani route too, just kind of final thoughts.
Yeah, as far as for me, in terms of like what I like this off, I'll start with what I like, and then other stuff that I want to hit on is the Braves. I really like what they've done, and they're a team that has been really aggressive so far in the pitching market. They obviously got Ronaldo Lopez, signed him for 3 years, $30 million. They got Aaron Bummer. They traded 5 players, including Mike Soroka, for him, and they view him as a really high upside swing as far as a reliever there. And they've really focused on trying to add to that rotation and also the bullpen. And every indication that I've gotten is that they're not done. And they're a team that I think will add another starting pitcher. I think an Eduardo Rodriguez type makes a whole lot of sense. His market has been pretty active. That is one that is definitely worth watching for sure. And I would also expect them to explore adding another reliever as well. I don't necessarily know what type, but they're definitely looking for bullpen upgrades. And I really like what Anthopoulos has done there. He's always aggressive. The Braves Twitter account, the Braves Foundation, is always thriving with breaking news and signings. So props to them for doing that. But I'll give you another one to watch too. And I have not reported this. I don't think this has gotten reported yet. At least part of this is that the Twins, they're looking at shedding payroll, and they have aggressively tried to move certain players. And one of them has been Christian Vazquez, according to sources who have spoken with the Twins. I don't necessarily know what the likelihood of a trade is, but when he was a free agent last year, he ended up garnering pretty strong interest from the Padres. The Marlins right now are looking for a catcher. There's plenty of other teams who are looking for a catcher. So I think he could absolutely make sense as a trade candidate. If you look at, they got other trade candidates there too with Max Kepler and some others. But I think Vazquez is certainly one to watch, especially since they have in-house catching options as well. And then another one that I want to hit on, if you boys don't mind.
Go for it. Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, is the starting pitching market. It is extremely active right now. And if you look at all the different options that are out there right now, you have like the high end options like Yamamoto, you have Blake Snell, you have those tier 1 guys, but you also have a lot of other players like a Michael Wacha, you have like a Jack Flaherty, a Lucas Giolito, you have players in that tier who are garnering pretty strong interest, and 2 other ones that are relatively, I don't want to say under the radar, at least for Seth Lugo's case, but his market has been pretty extensive. He's got more than half the league that's checked in on him, and it's active enough where I would not be surprised at all if he ultimately ended up with a 3 or a 4 year contract. He is very highly sought after. Nothing imminent there, of course, but his market, there's a lot of teams there that are looking, and I would firmly expect him to end up signing a pretty hefty contract. And then as far as like a really under the radar one is Noah Syndergaard. And he is someone,
Wow.
obviously, coming off of a really down year last year with the Dodgers and then Cleveland. He is someone that I know that certain teams are eyeing up as a bounce back candidate. And it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up getting another contract this year, as teams trying to take a high upside swing there for cheap. So he's certainly one to watch, but the starting pitching market is extremely active. It will be plenty lucrative, and that is certainly an area to watch, especially like going from now to the winter meetings, basically the entire offseason.
Speaking of ones to watch, Robert, which one of those TVs do you watch the most? We're so intrigued. Like we're
getting a lot of attention from the crowd too. They're like 5 TV flex, and I'm like, hey, Robert's great, and you know this, Robert. I've been a fan of your work for years. Always read your stuff on Fansided, and I know you've got your weekly show. We'll talk about it in a sec. But Danny, he's locked in. You know,
yeah.
when there's 8, 7 o'clock games, he does have to put one on. That's the whip around big inning kind of thing. But otherwise, like he can fully watch, right?
Yeah. And where's all the cords too, by the way?
Oh, dude, I've tried my best to hide them. They're there. Like I did my best to hide them, but I'll tell you, we got MLB TV, we got Sunday tickets. So basically, when it comes to baseball or football, your boy's not missing a game. So it's been pretty awesome. As soon as I set this thing up, I had people immediately asked to come over and watch some games together, and it's been a great conversation starter. Been great. I'll tell you, we've had some fun with it for sure. But man, oh man, sports season has never been better.
That's a great cave setup. You know, I like it. I mean, the NFL tomorrow is going to be like, shit, dude, we don't have enough games for Robert. We got to have more games on at a time. Robert's TVs are outpacing our game schedule. So I love it, dude.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's a great setup. Well, you do a great job. Thank you for joining us here for the first time. It was awesome to have you on. You can follow Robert at by Robert Murray, also on fansided.com. And you want to plug the show too that you've got running for people that are here that are looking for some more options?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you doing this. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called the Baseball Insiders. I host it with my co-host, Adam Weinrib, and we do it every Monday and Thursday. And on that show, I try to drop as much information as I possibly can, insider info that I have not even tweeted yet. And it's been a very active audience. It's been a blast doing it. And it's been watching it grow has been one of the coolest things that I could have possibly imagined. And I would love if everyone could check it out because it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. So appreciate you guys let me plug that here.
Dude, of course. Baseball fam. I mean, fans are looking for more real talk options, free options, digital options, the whole deal. Trust me, I'm coming from somewhere that was behind a paywall and all of that. So I'm with you, Robert. You guys do a great job. Great to have you on. Have a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully you can put your phone down for 24 hours, which our buddy Rosenthal said he's going to try to do, kind of. And we're looking forward to winter meetings, man.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm hoping baseball settles down for Thanksgiving because I'm going to be with my girlfriend and her family. So I don't want to upset anyone at Thanksgiving dinner. I feel like that'd probably be frowned upon. But hey, baseball is baseball. Scoops are out to be had. So I got to try to break some news somehow. No matter where it may be.
Hell yeah, dude. We know you'll be hustling regardless. Robert, great to talk to you, dude. Enjoy the break. Ish.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Thanks again for having me.